Ciao, I'm Mary Ann Esposito. Today on Ciao Italia, celebrating women with torta mimosa. Today we're going to make a torta, a cake called torta mimosa. And torta mimosa is a very important cake, especially on March 8th. That's when you really want to make it, because this cake celebrates International Women's Day. And in Italy, on March 8th, women are presented with this cake and with a beautiful yellow flower called the mimosa flower. So you notice I'm wearing yellow today in honor of the mimosa flower and the color of this cake. So how do you make it? Well, it's a sponge cake, and a sponge cake is like a foam cake. And so you want to start with a lot of eggs. So we have 4 eggs that we're going to put into our mixer. And what we want to do with these eggs is really whip them up so that they have a lot of air in them, because this is really what is going to allow this cake to rise. Now the cakes, this makes 3 cakes, and these cakes don't rise a lot, but the eggs are what give it its leavening power. So we have our 4 whole eggs, and we want to turn up our mixer, and it's really best to do this in a stand mixer, because you really have to get the volume of these eggs, whipping a lot of air into them. So with the 4 whole eggs, you need 6 egg yolks. So that's why I'm telling you that it's a pretty yellow colored cake. So here are 6 egg yolks. I put them in one at a time and let them get well incorporated before adding the next one. And I'm not going to lie to you, this is a cake that is a little bit involved, but it's not worth it. It's worth making it to celebrate International Women's Day. So there are the 6 yolks. So now we're really going to turn this up, and I'm going to add some sugar to this. So here's some sugar, a little bit at a time. Now what you see in here has to triple in volume. So this is going to take, I would say, about 5 or 6 minutes to do. And with it, we're going to give it a little bit of vanilla extract. Now, an extract means that there's 35% alcohol. So not flavoring, which is water and some other synthetic thing, but the real thing. So a little bit of vanilla. Teaspoon or so. I like vanilla, so you can put in there a little, as much as you want to. So now we get this going, and we wait until those eggs are where we want them. Okay, I just want you to take a look in there and look at how beautiful and velvety that is. You notice how that's changed color. So now we have this gorgeous looking batter. Now we have to add the flour to it. So we have 1 1/3 cups here of cake flour. We have some potato flour, about 1/4 cup. And we have about 1 tablespoon of baking powder. And you want a little bit of salt. So we want to mix all of that together. Just do that with a spoon. So now we need to add this back to the batter. So I'm going to set this back down again and turn this on. Not as high as the speed before. And I'm going to add this a little at a time. Right here, 8.5-inch cake pans. And we're going to divide this batter between these 3 pans. So you just have to eyeball this between the 3 cake pans because you're going to fill these with a pastry cream. So I add a little bit to one, then I go to the next one, filling that, then I go to the next one. Gotta get that closer to me. Spread it out, make sure it's all even. Okay, give them a little tap. There they are. They go into the oven. And when they're ready, I'll show you what happens with them. But now we have to make the pastry cream. The pastry cream for the mimosa cake is really easy to make. We're going to start with 2 cups of milk that I already have heating up on the stovetop. And I'm going to flavor it with some vanilla bean. So this is vanilla bean. It's really a pod that grows on the orchid. This is an orchid pod. So it smells just like vanilla, and it comes in a jar in your grocery store like that. But inside are where the seeds are. And if you didn't want to use this, you could just use vanilla extract. So what I do is I just go down the center of the bean with a small knife, see, like that. And I open it up, and inside is where the seeds are. So you start scraping them, and they come off on your knife, see, little seeds. So you don't need much. And then what I do with the vanilla bean that I've scraped the seeds out of, I put it in my sugar jar or, you know, use it for something else, but I don't throw it away. So once you have some of that vanilla bean out of there, then you're going to add that to the milk. All right, I'm just going to put the vanilla bean in, stir that around the seeds. And that's just going to flavor this, give it little flecks of vanilla bean look to it. So we want to heat this milk just to under the boil. And then we have to add some eggs to this. So I'm going to turn this down while we do the eggs. 2 whole eggs, 2 egg yolks. I'm going to beat that with some sugar and flour. So let me get that going. So break up the eggs. And this is really an elaborate cake, I have to admit. It's an elaborate cake, but I say it's a worthy cake to do, because it honors all women internationally for their fight for equality and justice in the world. So we add the sugar. So now the flour. And why we're adding flour is so that when I put this into the milk mixture, the pastry cream will not curdle, because the flour is here to coat the egg proteins, and that will prevent the eggs from curdling on the heat over the stove. You could also do this in a double boiler. But by doing it this way, you don't have to put a double boiler together, and the flour will act as the agent that will prevent the pastry from curdling. So let me stop now, and I'm just going to get a little bit of that milk. So come on over here and just take a little bit out of the pan. Don't need much. Just put it in like that. Okay, beat it up again. Okay, so now this is ready to go into the rest of the milk mixture. And I'm going to slowly add this to this milk. We want to cook it slowly until we have something that's thick, and we are going to put that in the refrigerator to thicken up even more, because we cannot put this in our cake hot. So once you get it all in there, then you cook, stirring slowly over low heat until this coats the back of a spoon. All right, here is our pastry cream. I'm going to put it right in this bowl. You can see how thick it really is. And it didn't curdle because, of course, we added the flour to coat those egg proteins. Now this is going to be enough for the 2 layers that we have to fill, and also to frost the cake, because we're going to frost the cake with this pastry cream as well. All right, so there it all is. And now we want to add some lemon zest. Smells delicious. And this pastry cream is something that you could also use for other kinds of desserts too, other filled desserts. So I'm just going to mix that in. You see how nice and thick it is. And when it's cool, we have to lighten it with some heavy cream. But now we have to cool it. So you put a piece of buttered paper over the top just to prevent any kind of a film from forming. And you put that in your refrigerator. I would say it's going to take at least a couple of hours to chill down. So that's why I'm suggesting that you even do it the day before. So now we whip the cream when that's ready. All right, now we want to add 2 cups of whipping cream to our mixer here with a couple tablespoons of sugar. And the best thing to do when you're whipping cream is to make sure everything is cold. So the cream should be cold, your beaters should be cold. So now we want to whip this until we have stiff peaks. Okay, let's take a look. Yep, I would say that we have whipped cream. All right, so now I'm going to put this right in here. Looks like a big mound of snow, doesn't it? And now we want to get the pastry cream mixed in with this. Okay. So here's our pastry cream that we did earlier. I'm going to take off that paper, which prevents the skin from forming. And you want to fold this in. So this is going to be enough for the layers, for between the layers, and also we have to put it on the outside of the cake. So now you really fold it in well. And I have a friend in Reggio Emilia who always tells me about the cake that they make for her on March 8th for the torta di mimosa, torta mimosa. And they always surprise her, her family. She always acts surprised, but every year she gets the same cake. Okay, so that's looking good. So now I'm going to set this aside and get the cakes. Show you what we do next. So here are the sponge cakes. Okay? And here are 2 that I made. I've been making more cakes than I care to talk about right now, but anyway. So you want to take a serrated knife and go through the cake gently. And this is what it looks like. So this is what I'm telling you about the sponge. See how those little holes? And look at how nice and yellow that is. Matches my sweater, don't you think? All right, so we have the cakes like this. So now we need to form them because this is a molded cake. I know you said, oh my gosh, she's not done yet. So here I have a bowl, a large bowl that I've lined with some plastic wrap, and I let the excess hang over the sides of the bowl. So you want to put one layer in the bowl and really kind of press it down so it takes the shape of the bowl. Now you have options here. You can either make a sugar syrup, which means to combine an equal amount of sugar and water. So if you were having a half a cup of sugar, you need a half a cup of water. Or you could have a half a cup of sugar, a quarter cup of water, and a quarter cup of some liqueur like limoncello. And you paint these layers. But I'm going to avoid all that. I got my little spritzer here. You know what's in here? Limoncello. So I'm going to give that just a little sprinkling. Oops, I'm sprinkling me, of limoncello over the base of the cake. And the reason you want to use a spritzer is because it gives an even coating. So once you have that, then you can work with the filling. So you take this filling and you spread it right there, okay, over that cake layer. Boy, I wish you could smell that limoncello. Now that I sprayed it on me, I smell like a nice lemon. And limoncello, of course, comes from Amalfi. Okay, so there is one layer. And then you take another layer and put that on top. See? Press down again, gently, because these are delicate. And again, spritz. Either you're using the sugar syrup that you've cooked until it was clear liquid, or you're doing this. This is much easier. And we add more of the pastry cream. And look at how pretty that pastry cream is. It just goes in there beautifully. Spread it evenly. Okay, looks good. And then we put on another layer. So here's more cake. Put that over the top, just like that. So you have 3 layers. I mean, you could keep going, but you need 3 cakes to do this because you're going to have to do something to the outside of the cake. Then you fold over that paper, right over that cake, okay, like that. And then just give it a press with your hands so it's just even. The cake is even. Now this needs to go in the refrigerator and it's got to chill. I would say do this at least 5 or 6 hours ahead of time. Do it the day before. That's why I'm telling you. You could make the pastry cream ahead of time. You could make the cakes ahead of time. So now I'm going to put it in the refrigerator to chill and bring out the one that I stayed up last night to make. And here it is. So now we want to open this up, the great reveal. And what we need to do is to dump this cake onto a serving dish. So now I've got to get a serving dish. Make sure you've opened up the paper. Put it over the top. 3 Hail Marys. Take the bowl off. Take the paper off. Okay, and there's our little domed affair. But now we have to frost the outside of the cake with this pastry cream. So again, we're going to go all around the cake. Okay. So you want to make sure that when you've made that cream, you have whipped it to the proper consistency because you don't want it all going everywhere. Now I have to get a small little spatula so I can get on the sides. So go all the way around the cake. filling it in. Okay. It is just a delicious, light cake. And whipped cream is a good thing to do because it hides a lot of sins, if you know what I mean. Okay. This cake reminds me of an igloo when you're done with it. And you should have just enough cream to do it. And don't worry if you have a little gap here or there, because we're going to take care of that with the next thing. So once you've got it pretty much like that, well then you've stayed up all night cutting these little squares out of the rest of the cake that you made. And you start going around the cake. See all these little squares? This was the rest of the cake. And you fill in all the way around the cake. Okay? And you have the squares about the same size. It doesn't have to be perfect because, my goodness, we would be here for a month of Sundays if we did that. But isn't it a nice idea? Just like the Italians, always out there impressing people with the most beautiful foods. And about 25 or 30 minutes later, you will have a work of art. So here we are almost at the end, and I'm just cutting the squares a little smaller to fit right in that top area. It doesn't have to be real fancy because you're going to put confectioner's sugar all over the top of this. But basically, there it is, your mimosa cake. And it's usually topped with the mimosa flowers, but I don't have any today, so let me get a sieve for this and a spoon. Okay, so now we're going to add some confectioner's sugar all over this cake. And as I say, it really does remind me of an igloo. When it's all said and done, you give this to the women in your life who have made a difference. So, there you have it. Next time March 8th rolls around, torta mimosa. All women deserve to be celebrated every day of the year, but especially on March 8th, International Women's Day. And in Italy, that means torta mimosa. And here it is, ready to be served. And you have to admit, it is an impressive looking cake. Remember, we made sponge cakes that we filled with a pastry cream, and then we cut small squares of the cake and mounted it over the finished cake. And now it's all ready for the serving. And I would suggest a wonderful little glass of limoncello to go with it. And until I see you nella cucina again, I'm Mary Ann Esposito. Ciao.